Hello, I'm Danielle Barger with Barger and Batiste Law, and I am here to talk to you today about some important issues in estate planning, including how to pick a trustee. When I have clients come into me and talk about creating a trust and creating an estate plan, they are often trying to decide on who the best trustee is going to be. And so I'm going to talk about some various options so that you can think about what situation would work for you for when you're doing your own estate planning. So I'm going to first define what a trustee is. A trustee is the person who will make financial decisions for you if you are not able to make them yourself, either because you're incapacitated or because you pass away. That trustee will manage things on your behalf when you can't. They will administer your estate once you pass away, doing things such as filing your final tax returns, making sure that any properties that need to be listed and sold are done, making sure that all the bills are paid, and then distributing the assets to the beneficiaries. The trustee may also hang on to that money for some time in the future as well, depending on who your beneficiaries are. For example, if you are leaving money to a child who is a minor, that trustee may very well hang on to that money for the next 10, 20, 30 years. So we want to make sure that when you pick a trustee, you are picking somebody that's going to do a good job and you're setting up your plan for success so that it'll work for you. So I'm going to start with what makes a good trustee. So I mentioned some various jobs of a trustee, such as filing tax returns, making sure that assets are gathered, administered, distributed. But in order to do that, your trustee is going to have some qualities where that will come into play. For example, we want to make sure that your trustee has good communication skills and can update the various beneficiaries on what's going on. If you are leaving assets to 10 different people, you want to make sure that those 10 people can reach out to the trustee and know what's going on. One of the duties of a trustee is to keep the beneficiaries reasonably informed. Well, reasonably informed does not mean that the beneficiaries are entitled to know everything that's going on, but there should be some level of communication with some regular updates. And so we want to make sure that person is equipped to do that. We also want to make sure that that person is a good record keeper. As I mentioned, there'll be tax returns and things that have to be done. And so somebody that is not so great at managing records is probably not a good fit. We also want to make sure that that person is either skilled in the tasks that they're going to have to do or is able to reach out and get help when it's needed. For example, let's say that somebody has a large coin collection. I don't need the trustee to be a professional valuation expert for coins, but what I do want to make sure is that they'll identify that they don't know anything about coins. They'll call the attorney that's helping them and say, hey, I need some help in figuring out what to do with these coins. Now, I'll say that there are generally 3 different flavors of trustees. There are the individual people, like an adult child, a family member, or a friend. There's also a corporate trustee, and then there's also professional trustees. So how do we decide between those various flavors of trustees? Well, once somebody told me that a trustee might be the hardest job that you've never applied for. So just think about that for a minute. That person is going to have to do all this work, go through all of your stuff, deal with bank records, deal with money in order to get money distributed to other people. So it's not always the best job. And many kids will feel that they were the chosen one and they got to be a trustee. And maybe they feel that way, but I'm here to tell you that it's not always the best job. And just because somebody is nominated to serve as trustee does not mean they have to serve. So when you're thinking about who you're going to nominate as trustee, you might want to ask them if they're willing to do it. And it's always a good idea to have one or two backups so that if the person that you selected is not able to serve, there is somebody that could take over or some mechanism to have somebody take over when it's actually needed. So I'm going to go into those various choices. Now, many clients will go, I'm just going to name my adult child because that way they can do it. It's not going to charge me any money. It's not going to cost me anything. And that's the way to go. So let's talk about payment. Being a trustee is a job. And what happens when you have a job? You get paid to do that job. And being a trustee is no different. So when somebody serves as trustee, they are entitled to be compensated and they should be compensated. What's interesting is, how do we compensate a trustee? Well, there's not really a written rule that a trustee should get paid X amount of dollars or Y percentage. What we do is we look at what is the going rate in the city or county that you live in and what's reasonable, and we look at what other people charge to come up with what is a reasonable fee. So if your adult daughter is named as trustee and she serves, she may decide she wants to waive those fees and not get paid. That's fine. But if she does want to get paid, she should be paid. And when we look at what she should be paid, we look at what a professional would charge. So don't think that naming your child is going to be necessarily a less expensive option. So now that we've got payment out of the way and we're looking at a couple different flavors of trustees, let's talk about them. Naming the adult child is common. The problem with it is that when you have more than one child, which of your children are you going to name? Are you going to name the son because he's the male and that makes sense? Are you going to name the daughter because maybe she's closer to you geographically? Are you going to name the oldest one because they're the oldest and they often get chosen? Or are you just going to name all three kids together and let them work together? Well, naming a trustee by any of those methods is really not the best way to go. You want to look at who the right person is, who's going to follow the terms of the trust, and who's going to communicate. It is going to take some extra work if you name multiple people as trustees. And frankly, having more than one person is something that I generally do not recommend because logistically it takes more time to have the 2 or 3 trustees confer, sign, meet, to go to the bank together and all those kind of things. So while I understand the thinking of mom and dad of naming all 3 kids together, in practice, logistically, it's a little bit more work. So if I'm dealing with somebody that is coming to see me and all 3 kids were named, I will generally talk through that with them and see if I can get 1 or 2 of them to resign or decline to serve. So we just have one person acting because it will be a little bit more simple. It will take less time and interaction by me, which is going to save some fees to the trust. Now, we also want to make sure that when you name an adult child, they are really acting in their best interest. In my example a minute ago where we've got 3 children, generally, if there's going to be any issues, it's not the 3 children. It is 1 or more of the spouses of those 3 children. The spouses kind of talk in the ear of the kid and say, what about this and what about this? And I feel like that often will bring about drama. And so that is an important part of looking at who the right person is for trustee, looking at those family dynamics and making sure that who you name is going to assess the situation and not be influenced by somebody else. So if picking a family member or the adult child now you've realized is not always the best way to go, let's talk about those other categories. A corporate trustee is generally a bank or other institution that will have a department that just administers trusts. There are many of them that will do that. For example, Union Bank, Northern Trust, Securian Trust Company, Wells Fargo. They all have trust departments, and they are very well equipped to administer your estate. They can be a great option because they are objective. They have a department, so if one person resigns, retires, passes away, there's somebody else to step in. They have a wealth of experience because they've been doing this and this is all they do. But they are a bank, and so you might not feel that they are the best for you because maybe they don't know your family in the same way that your family friend does know somebody. But it's a great option. Sometimes the corporate trustees will have minimums where if you don't have a certain threshold of assets, they won't serve. So make sure that whenever somebody is going to be named, you make sure that they are an appropriate person for that job. Now, going from a corporate trustee on one side of the spectrum to the adult child or family member on the other side, what about something in the middle? What about a professional fiduciary? Those are individual people that are licensed and bonded in the state of California, and they can serve as a trustee. They are objective. They have a license, so they're going to follow the rules. There's oversight by the state so that you can go online and see that particular trustee, how much money they're managing, see if they have any disciplinary actions. And because they're individuals, you can get to know them. They can get to know your family, and they could be a really good fit. Now, professional fiduciaries will be paid because, again, it is a job. So you'll want to make sure that when you're talking to professional fiduciaries, you understand a couple important things. One, how are they going to get paid? You want to make sure that whatever their fee structure is something that you're comfortable with and you understand. Some will charge on an hourly basis for the time they actually spend. Others will charge a percentage of the assets, maybe 1%. It really depends on that individual and the amount of assets. So check that out and make sure you're comfortable with it. And then you'll also want to make sure that they have some successor in place. Because professional fiduciaries are individually licensed, if you go and you chat with somebody and you find that he or she is a great fit, ask them, say, hey, if I'm going to name you, what is your recommendation for a backup in case I've retired by the time I need to serve, or I'm just not able to take on that role? Many of them come in groups where they'll have their own succession plan within the office. And so I might be naming professional fiduciary 1, professional fiduciary number 2, and then a third. If they don't have that, they often will have a preference of what would be a good way to name them to ensure that that role is filled and it's not vacant. Now, I also wanted to mention the possibility of a co-trustee relationship. A couple minutes ago, I mentioned how I generally don't like naming all of your children together as co-trustees because it can cause some logistical challenges and some extra work. But sometimes naming a family member with a professional fiduciary or with a corporate trustee could be just the right mix of the experience and the objectivity that the professional brings and the personal touch that the family member brings as well. Now, make sure that if you're thinking about doing that in your own plan, you talk to those people and make sure that they will serve together, because some institutions or professionals will not serve in that role. And I want to make sure that we set up your estate plan for success. So those are some pieces of information that you should consider before talking to your attorney and getting the counseling needed to put your estate plan in place. I want you to know that you can ask questions in the comments, and I'm happy to answer those that I can. This is really designed to be some general information and not specific legal advice. You need to hire an attorney and talk to them about your specific needs, because there is not a one-size-fits-all. And when you go through that counseling process, now you'll have a little bit more information about what options are out there so that you can talk to somebody about what might work for you. If you like what you've heard today, make sure you subscribe and like. I'm trying to gain some traction here, and then you'll make sure that as I post more videos, you are notified of them. See below for my contact information, but feel free to reach out to me at dbarger@dbsquaredlaw.com. Thanks so much for listening. Bye-bye.